They're still working out things over here. But nevertheless, I'll play that back in a few minutes. While that is booting up, I do want to hit on another part of the discussion that we have scheduled. One of them is called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Summer Convention 2023. Does everybody hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Some great things happened during the summer convention. Some good things happened during the summer convention. And of course, some bad things did happen because of the, or during the summer convention. Let me hit first on the bad. Of course, as we had talked about, we did lose some vendors during the convention. One, particularly from COVID. Now, as I understand, and I did see little comments throughout the convention season, we had one chapter. Well, there was one chapter where a group from that chapter went to their convention, and over 80% of the group, not the chapter, but 80% of the group did contract COVID. We had a vendor who passed from COVID. That comes to a discussion to be made about safety. As people say, all money ain't good money, especially when you make it, but you are not around to spend it. And life is not just about spending, but you work hard for what you do. And there has to be ways for vendors to protect themselves. If you think about a convention or a conference, actually the vendors are exposed more to the attendees than the leadership is, if you think about it, because those attendees are coming into that convention hall and they are looking over your merchandise, and you have thousands upon thousands of people visiting your booth. Okay, so let's open up the floor for a little discussion about how we can actually help or make resolves or ways for vendors to be protected. And in the meantime, when there's no convention, where are you selling it as well? So it's a two-part question. The door is open, or the floor is open for discussion. Well, a bad thing that happened is that we did have a vendor whose truck was stolen during convention. And that was a sad thing as well. Um, we talk about ways for vendors. We want to talk about ways for vendors to protect themselves, especially from unfortunate incidents like that. And we also would like to talk about a hit on insurance, maybe location trackers. Any insight to that?
Angelica, I have my hand up.
Oh, go ahead. I can. Oh, I see a hand now. I do. Go ahead.
So I wanted to talk to you guys about vendor safety, or to say something about vendor safety. And there's a couple of things about it. Is one, when we go to places, and I'm sure some of you guys are aware, we were at a convention and someone broke into our room while we were in there and stole. They took we were asleep, but they took our computers, the iPad, telephones. They stole my rituals. I'm sorry, babe. They stole my rituals. So if I don't know what recourse we have as vendors when something happens to us. We were told to reach out to the sororities director. I forget her actual title, but we reached out to let them know what happened. To this day, we have never been compensated. The hotel, which was the Delano,
Vegas.
In Vegas. We weren't the only ones that it happened to on the same day. People know that we're going to be in plenaries, or we have to go to opening ceremonies, and vendors. We're at the vendor hall because we know that the executive board is coming through at a certain time. And so they assumed that people wouldn't be in their rooms, and they came in and took stuff. We were asleep. He was actually asleep on the couch in the front area, and myself and my daughter was asleep in the bedroom. And we thought, each of us thought that the other person were just coming in because we were at a casino. Like, did you go out last night, early in the morning and gamble and come back up? He said, babe, where's the computer? Because we had entered all of our information into the computer. And in preparation for sales, they thought that we had money there or something of great value, which was our phones and our iPads and computers and my rituals. But we have to be vigilant about our own safety, about the safety of our products, while they are okay with putting us out of the room to ensure that none of us or people affiliated with us can take something from another vendor's booth while they're not there. They're not actually paying close enough attention to our personal safety. So I think that needs to be a discussion. At the next convention, I want to talk about it when we have the vendor relations plenary, because there's a lot of things that happen that nobody ever knows about because we haven't discussed it, or we've discussed it in our silo groups. But that was terrifying, because if you can imagine, I'm going to let you talk in just a second, babe. If you can imagine somebody coming into a room where there are people, you can imagine that they were prepared to do something had we awakened.
Yeah, because I was we had to be down at the vendor area early in the morning, but I was up late at night making sure everything was in the iPad. So I fell asleep on the sofa and the iPad was on the floor next to me. My phone was right above my head. So the person came in the middle of the night, took the iPad, took the phone. I'm asleep right there. Regina and my daughter sleep in the room. I thank God I didn't wake up, because who knows what had happened, what could have happened. So if there's somehow maybe where the Delta, when they make these contracts with these hotels, if they can somehow, maybe if they put all the vendors, I don't know if you can do this, but put the vendors together in an area and have a little more control over their rooms, that would be great.
So like they block rooms for us, right? That for the organization. It would be great if they could block rooms for vendors, because when it comes to vending, we're on our own. And by the time we get the notification, most of the time the room block is already sold out, unless we are members of the organization. So thank goodness I'm a member, and then I've been an officer, because then I get preferential, room reservation. But there are some vendors who are not in the hotel and they're at other places, and they have to come really early in the morning. And I see some Thors or some people in the chat who travel by themselves. We are open prey to people. They see us making money and hand-to-hand money transactions, and people follow you. They come there just for that. And with the crime rates the way they are now, it's horrible. Please try to travel with somebody, male or female, because men, you guys are tough, but they're tougher. They came to prepare to hurt you for your wares or your money. So you may be able to protect yourselves physically against them a little bit better, but if they got a gun don't care what sex you are or how strong you are. So something should be done, or at least discussed, as far as safety for us. Angelica, you're on mute.
You're correct. I'm sorry. You're correct as well when it comes to men. Men are big and rough and tough. However, they're going to bring 3 more men or 2 more men for that one tough and rough guy as well, because people they plan out their little crimes as well. Maybe ill-prepared or ill-formed on how they prepared for it, but most times they get to do, or it takes effect on what they want to happen. But you're right. Going back to the vendor whose truck was stolen, that put him out of business for 2 weeks. The entire truck and the trailer, I understand, was taken. And all of that merchandise, those people can't sell it because that has the symbols of the organizations on it. Who are you going to sell it to? You're going to sell a bunch of AKA dresses just around the world. And folks, you got women dressed up in AKA and Delta and Zeta stuff, and they're not the members. You can pinpoint possibly who that thief was, hopefully, but we're glad that they're back on their feet. We have Shamika Lewis and Natasha Brown. Shamika?
My very first convention was the Atlanta convention. And that particular time, I think that one of the big things that they really need to focus on with vendor safety is all of the scattered and about. Like, we have to figure out everything from the point that when we get there until we leave, from parking to everything. There's no real set agenda on what it is that, and in Atlanta, I thought maybe this is my first time. Maybe, it's not, maybe I'm missing something because I was a new vendor at the time. But that particular convention, we were parked directly across the street and parking that we had paid for from the convention, and someone popped out every single window in that lot. Everybody's window that was in that lot that was parked on the road, same row as mine, everybody's window was taken out. There was an Omni and another hotel that was right there that the lot was in between. There was camera footage, but they couldn't tell who it was. It was kind of like one of those grab and go type situations where they kind of took what was in view and didn't take anything else. Luckily for me, like, I had not checked into my Airbnb yet. So for me, I had a TV and a couple of pistols but they only took some snacks. That so I mean, it cost me a whole lot, but I had to have a window replaced basically for somebody popping right across the street from the convention. They popped out my window for snacks. And so I think, we go in, a lot of the times there is very limited. We had the whole fiasco this time with the load and unload questions. And so if the load and unload wasn't set in stone and clear, of course we weren't going to have clear directions as to where parking was. But when I parked day 2, once they started putting the stickers on and towing for this last convention, I mean, the parking was almost a mile up the street. And so, you would think that as much as we pay to be in those rooms, that the very least that they can do is give us a safe place to enter and exit the conventions, and to know that our cars, our vehicles, our trailers are going to still be in one piece and not vandalized when we get out.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Natasha? Natasha?
Yes, this is
Okay.
Natasha Brown, Sophisticated Greek. I honestly have no desire to ever do like in person, like really big events for various reasons. But one of my concerns when I was an attendee at the last national convention was the actual, I'll say, traffic flow. It was extremely crowded in the vendor space. So I'm not sure, this may be something where talk to the national headquarters about, in terms of, I don't want to say limiting the vendors, but having a safe space where if unfortunately we had to exit the venue, that we would have a safe way to do so, because it was so crowded under some of the booths. I just really couldn't get to certain things. I ended up ordering stuff online because I just could not get to the booth, or the traffic was so congested, whether you're coming through the different rows.
Okay. Natasha, are you still there?
Yes, I was. Was
Okay.
I?
I think you fell off with your last statement. That's what it was.
Oh, but my biggest concern was the safety of anyone that was in the vendor space, whether it be the vendors or the customer stores, because there was not a lot of flow in things like that.
Okay, that's a valid concern as well. That's something I'll make sure I make note of it in the special space after this, so we can discuss this more. We now have Tanoa Morgan. And Tanoa, let me know if I'm pronouncing the name correctly.
Absolutely, you got it right.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm really, I'm a new vendor. glad to be here today. Very, very sad to hear about the things that happened with some of the vendors this season and in the past. But I just wanted to share a couple of things in regards to my other background, which is actually in the insurance industry, property and casualty. On the property and casualty side, in terms of making sure that as vendors we have, the appropriate assurance, because these kinds of things do happen. We have property destroyed, we have things, our cars or what have you are broken into, and sometimes we're not exactly sure how we can get compensated for those types of things. Like I heard one of the members saying earlier that they never received any compensation for it. But just a note that through your business insurance, and sometimes kind of depending on how you have it set up, sometimes even through your homeowner's insurance, you may be able to receive compensation back for some of those things. For example, proper business insurance policy, the fellow who lost his truck and had all his stuff stolen, even with losing all of that, his insurance should have been able to both pay him back and pay him back for time lost. So it's just a reminder, a thought process. If you don't have insurance, or you don't know kind of like what your policy is covering or whatever, talk to your insurance agent, or feel free to give me a call. I'm happy to kind of look at that as well. But I hate to hear about that kind of thing happening, but you just never know, because people are after, they're at, not just us, but people are, there are predators out here, and we can find ourselves in those type of situations where we become the prey. And it's nice to know, that if your belongings are affected, that you may be able to receive compensation in some way, so that you just don't have to suffer so much loss.
Exactly. Thank you so much, very insightful. We would like to know more about your insurance services as well. So please drop a tag or the website or your contact information in the chat. And also I would like to get more information for you for the special spot for this summit as well. Deborah?
Hi, this is Deborah Bradford from Designs by D. And this was my first year at the convention as well as a vendor, and parking was absolutely horrible. The good thing for me is I had my son come with us, so he would kind of do a drop off and a pickup, so he was able to kind of slide in and out, and then he would go back to our Airbnb and kind of like do some things there. So if you have a spare body or someone who could help kind of do like a drop off and things, and that way your vehicles are not, I know that's not going to work for everybody, but that's how we were able to manage that type of safety. And one of the other things that we experienced was when I hear people say how crowded it was in the vendor space, the exhibition hall, we were over to the side, 1600. There was hardly no traffic over there. And I think, as individuals walked into the exhibit hall, you're jam packed with like, whoa, this is so much, because it was so much when you walk in that way. But with us being over to the right, people weren't realizing that we were over there, and they were making announcements. They was trying to, hey, don't forget, vendors over in 1230, over there. But we did not get the traffic and the exposure that everyone else, on that other side was getting. And it was a little disheartening because it was our first time, but someone who was a seasoned vendor came over and actually said to us, like, this is kind of like the traffic of a regional, not the traffic of a national conference. And I just felt like, gosh, it just was a hard one for the first one. So I just wanted to share. I don't know if anybody even knew that there were people who were saying, "Oh, you guys weren't even over here yesterday." I'm like, "Yes, we were. We've been here. You
Yeah.
know, we were here." So thank you.
Yes. And when you all bring up about the traffic, I'm not sure. Is Eric Lee Usher still here online? Is Eric Lee Usher? But let me show you something a concept that I came up with. It may not be coming to fruition until the next conference or convention. Gonna has a phone. Do you see that?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is something that I was talking about right before conventions. And it was an event vendor map. I'm not sure. I think something is well, my little long, let me try to move that over. But anyway, an event vendor map is a mobile app where a attendee can actually download and they can find the vendors. Okay. Like it will map out the actual vendor area, and it will tell you, like if you know the vendor's booth number or you have the name of the vendor or something like that to that effect, where that person, your phone will lead you to that vendor. It will also allow vendors to post one of their hottest items prior to that person coming to your table. They see a hot item that you have. I got to find that vendor. Where are they in this hall? So please remain prayerful that we can have this come to fruition. I had a little notebook idea where you can actually have a little notebook, and when you go to a vendor's table, you can write down their booth number and name, because there have been many times when I've been at a convention, I bought something, came back home, and people ask me, "Where'd you got that from?" I got it at a convention. What's the name of the vendor? I can't remember it. I never got the name of the vendor. I just know I liked it and I bought it when I passed by the vendor. This vendor was by the booth that had the fur coats. So you know what I'm saying? So the vendor the event vendor map, which is a mobile app, hoping that this will come into fruition by the spring of 2024. So keep your fingers crossed on that as well. And maybe we can increase the flow of traffic at a lot of those tables as well.
That would be great. That would be awesome.
Yes, and maybe you can have a QR code to go to everybody. All of that stuff. Well, we'll find out. We will find out. And for some reason, I'm not sure what I've done, but I did something that was crazy. Let me see if I can get my back. Okay. I'm trying to get myself back big. But one of the great things that did happen at the convention, at one of the conventions, was Alpha Phi Alpha. You all know what I'm talking about, don't you? Of what they did. I guess no one knows. Well, what they did is that.
Yes.
Go ahead. Who's talking?
Darylyn, but I'm eating too. I'm sorry.
No problem.
They gave money to use at the vendor. Instead of giving like a bag like we get at each convention, they gave money that could be used at the vendor tables.
Yes. In lieu of giving the souvenir bag that we all get, because all of us get those bags and we don't know what happened to those bags later on. But what they did, in lieu of the bag, they gave all of their attendees something like $50 or $75 in alpha money. And that alpha money spent like real cash at the vendors' booths. Of course, the vendors turned in the money at the end of the convention. Yo, I'm sorry. Somebody's talking. But nevertheless, that is what happened. Make sure you mute yourself for those who still talking. But yes, they actually were able to give a boost of, and I think, did they say over 100? Well, it was based on the number of attendees. So if you multiply that $50 times 1,500, 1,400, 15,000 for Delta, and so that's a big boost to those vendors, which is great. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for that. And I need to get back to Candace Bruton. Candace Bruton, are you still here? Please let me know. Please be still here.